story. Embattled Congressman George Santos expected to make an appearance in court today after being charged by federal prosecutors. Now, despite these charges, the Speaker of the House says Congressman Santos will still keep his job.
As you know, with George Santos, I did not put him on any committees. For those like Senator Menendez, who was indicted and went to trial, he was still able to vote, and others. I believe he's a chairman of a committee today. In America, we'll just follow the same pattern we always have, right? If a person is indicted, they're not on committees, they have the right to vote, but they have to go to trial.
Speaker McCarthy says he'd only call on Congressman Santos to resign if he's found guilty. So we don't know what exactly he's facing, but it's likely related to campaign finance. So joining us this morning is Congressman Richie Torres. He's here to weigh in on these latest developments. So good morning, Congressman Torres. Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. And the Speaker's not telling the truth. He actually appointed George Santos to the Science Committee and the Small Business Committee before reversing himself under public pressure.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification there. Now, you've been calling on Congressman Santos to resign for months. Do you think he's actually going to show up today in court?
I mean, I suspect he will show up. And the best hope for driving Santos out of Congress is a plea bargain with the Eastern District Attorney. But for me, there are only two morally acceptable outcomes here. Either George Santos resigns, or House Republican leadership finally summons the courage to expel him from Congress. The House Republican leaders like Kevin McCarthy have a simple choice. Either you're enabling the corruption of George Santos or you're expelling it. You know, the 800,000 people of New York 3 and Long Island deserve honest representation, and George Santos is incapable of governing while operating in the shadows of a criminal indictment and a federal prosecution.
What do you make of Speaker McCarthy then pretty much saying, well, it's a double standard, right? When you look at somebody like Senator Bob Menendez, a Democrat who was indicted, was facing charges, and he actually kept his position, was not expelled or had to resign. So that's what Speaker McCarthy is kind of comparing this to.
George Santos' conduct is so egregious that even the majority of Republicans in the House have called on him to resign. So if those Republicans are willing to call on him to resign, then why not expel him? Like, no one disputes that George Santos violated campaign finance law. You know, he once reported earning $55,000 a year, and then in the next year he reported earning millions of dollars, and lent his campaign over $700,000. So the million-dollar question is, where did all the money come from?
Yeah.
And the answer to that question, I suspect, is the basis for the indictment.
So you're asking for McCarthy to expel him. Should that happen now, or should it wait after the trial?
The Constitution grants the authority to Congress to expel members for misconduct, and we have sufficient evidence that George Santos has engaged in conduct unbecoming of a member of Congress. I mean, here's a man who has lied about every aspect of his life: his education, his employment, his business dealings, his ties to historical events like 9/11, the Holocaust, the Pulse mass shooting. George Santos defrauded the voters of New York State, and he defrauded his way into the United States Congress, and he should be held accountable. And one means of accountability is expulsion.
Yeah, I mean, and you're mentioning some of those Republicans who are joining. Mike Lawler, a newly elected Republican in Hudson Valley, is calling for him to resign. Of course, the Speaker is in a very slippery slope, right? He needs George Santos for votes when it comes to vote, because he can still vote, even though he's not on a committee.
And to your point, George Santos was the decisive vote for the Republican legislation to default on America. And so Kevin McCarthy needs every vote that he can get, and he needs George Santos in order to remain in power. But there's a fundamental hypocrisy here. Republicans ran on a platform of draining the swamp. But those same Republicans refuse to drain the greatest swamp of them all, which is the corruption of George Santos, which everyone agrees on. Like, Republicans consider him radioactive and corrupt, and yet refuse to hold him accountable and expel him from Congress.
Well, before we let you go, the House Ethics Committee, they opened an investigation into Congressman Santos back in March. So where does that investigation stand right now?
The investigation is ongoing, and as you might imagine, the U.S. Attorney acts much more swiftly than the House Ethics Committee, which is a bureaucracy that operates as a snail's pace. And there's one more point worth making. You know, George Santos is not an accident. The fraudulence of George Santos is a natural outgrowth of a political party whose standard bearer is Donald Trump, who on the same day was found liable for sexual assault and abuse. And so this is part of a larger pattern that has corrupted American politics.
Right. So to your point, to what you just said there, right? Because it was a big news day yesterday in the world of politics with everything that was going on. How do you, as a member of Congress, instill back to the public now a bit of trust and understanding of what's happening? I mean, how would you describe the state of politics right now in the country?
Trust in politics is shaken because the likely Republican nominee was found liable for sexual abuse, and the decisive vote in Congress in the House of Representatives is under federal indictment. And so if that is not an indictment of how far we have fallen politically, then I'm not sure what would be.
Well, Congressman Torres, thanks again for taking the time to speak with us this morning. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.